Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Deborah Tyler Horton, State Director for AARP Georgia, and I'm excited you all have joined us tonight for Cultural Conversations, Sisters Having Their Say, a discussion about racial disparities among African American women. AARP is hosting this Women's History Month event to bring awareness to the issue of racial and ethnic disparities in healthcare, an issue that was near and dear to the heart of our founder, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrews. Dr. Andrews was a visionary and an advocate for social change. After discovering a friend and former colleague living in a chicken coop with no home and no health care, Dr. Andrews began a crusade for social change from which AARP was born. Today, AARP continues to strive toward a vision where people at every life
Recording
stage
in progress.
can maximize the opportunity of a longer life with purpose and dignity, and are provided with meaningful access to the services and opportunities that allow them to thrive. But to achieve that vision, we must address the issue of disparities. We must acknowledge that racial and ethnic disparities exist across multiple sectors, and we must endeavor to spark conversations and solutions that help to reduce or eliminate the barriers and circumstances that create those disparities. So let's get started. I have the privilege of introducing one of your moderators for the evening, Miss Sybil Wilkes. Many of you may know Miss Wilkes as the former co-host of the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Born and raised in Chicago, Sybil is a celebrated radio personality, journalist, and actress who has received numerous accolades, including the President's Award from the NAACP Image Awards. AARP is honored to have Sybil here with us tonight. So without further ado, I'll turn the evening over to Miss Sybil Wilkes.
Good evening, and thank you so much for that gracious introduction. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you and to be with my friends from AARP of Georgia. This is a dynamic opportunity for sisters having our say in conversations that are definitely needed, and hopefully not only starting and continuing the conversations, but not just amongst ourselves, but amongst our friends and family as well. The health disparities are great in this country, and as we know, having, and as I say, positively come out of a pandemic, we still know that the health disparities continue, and we are here to have discussions about that. And I hope that you will join us in the discussions with your questions, as well as perhaps some observations. But in the meantime, let's get started and talk about this great group of people. As we understand, AARP has assembled an incredible collection of folks. And we will also talk about these things as we get started. Myra Jay is going to be our co-host for the evening. And I'm sorry, Deborah Tyler Horton. I'm sorry about that. Let's talk to Deborah Tyler Horton, and she will also bring us greetings and an introduction there of Deborah Tyler Horton. Thank you.
We're okay, Sybil. I think it's just going to be you and Myra at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Myra Jay is one of the smartest and funniest women. No, let me just say this. She's one of the smartest and funniest people you will ever meet. She and I have had a long conversation about a number of things, especially as women as we are getting older. But she has done it with a grace and great aplomb. And as my friend and my colleague from the Tom Joyner Morning Show, it gives me great pleasure to work alongside of her, still into this new era of our lives. Myra Jay is a longtime stand-up comedian, a writer of numerous television shows, and she is a great I don't want to sound like this is a part of her body part, but she is a great liver of life. Welcome, Myra.
Hey, it's my liver light just came on. Like, hello? Did somebody call me? Are we doing things?
Yeah, yes, we are doing things. We're doing great things, Myra. And I do want to welcome you, first of all, and secondly, talk about a little bit about what you're doing and what's going on with you these days.
Well, you know what? I've done some writing recently. This has been a huge adjustment for all of us with the pandemic, being semi-retired. It just like you said, Sybil, it's the new chapter, and I'm so glad for agencies like AARP that gives us something to do, something positive to do, and giving us discounts and other things. And so I'm like, this is very, very cool. I'm very excited to be here. And as I like to say, being with saged women, we are well seasoned.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Being here with seasoned women. So looking forward to it.
So Myra, certainly you and I are no strangers, as are many people who are watching and joining us today, who are going to be a part of this panel. We are no strangers to the health disparities and how different health objectives affect our lives differently, and especially as the health disparity continues to widen. It's not necessarily closing. And on the subjects that we're going to be talking about, especially in terms of health, heart health and Alzheimer's disease, as well as the importance of our political movements and our political actions in getting what we need from our legislators. We know about the disparities, and certainly you're not alone in that either.
Yeah. You know, there are certain things. I keep saying I need to write a book called Things My Mother Didn't Tell Me, because as we get older, as women, our bodies naturally change, but then there are just some other things that come along with that affect our health. You know, weight gain can affect heart health. You know, Mama never told me that. You know, just so many other things. Who knew? Who knew that look? It's just a very intimate crowd of all of us wonderful AARP people. Who knew that the tatas would change sizes after all these years? Who knew? Things my mother didn't tell me. But that there are things that are very, very important related to all this that we need to know. And as Black women and Black people, we don't necessarily get the information that we need to have the best health. So I'm so glad we're going to get together to discuss some of those things.
So Myra, one of the things that I have learned and really blessed by our partnership with the American Heart Association and understanding about, we're number one in a lot of these diseases. Yay. No, it is an unfortunate number one position, but as prevalent as a lot of areas of heart disease are in our lives, getting the care, getting the health care, getting and Medicaid and Medicare and all of these things in our insurance coverage, that's making a big difference because we're not getting our full share.
Right. You know, one of the things that I have shared in my immediate family, my mother, my father, and my maternal brother that I grew up with, they were all unfortunately a part of that club that's known as one and done. They all had one heart attack and did not survive.
Right.
So I'm always very interested in when it comes to cardiovascular disease, what can we do to prevent it? And as African Americans, this and strokes and things, these are very huge in our community, and we really need to get a jump on it and stay on top of it, and couple with our medical facilities to actually say, what else can be done, because it's very, very real. It's very real.
We're going to talk about this. We have an esteemed group of women panelists who are going to be joining us and talking about this. And I do want to give people an idea of who we're going to be talking to. First of all, I'd like to introduce an old friend and one woman who you've seen on the forefront of our political lives over the last several years, especially. She has led a movement and is changing the world. And she and her co-founder have given us new life in terms of letting people know who we are and what we need to do and how to make it happen. She is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, and she is Madam Latasha Brown.
Hey, Latasha.
Hey, y'all. Here.
Also joining us is going to be Shawn Rivers. She is an American Heart Association ambassador, and she has a tremendous story, and we will be hearing from her as well. And Shawn, I don't know if you can hear us or if you can just say hey, but we will be having her join us as well. American Heart Association. Hi there, and I can't wait to get a look at you because I've met your sister. And
you have?
Yes, I have. Hi there. Yes, I have. And you know what? You really are twins.
We are.
But you are definitely an ambassador for the American Heart Association. You have an incredible story to tell, and we will be talking about that as well. And we will also be talking to Stephanie Johnson, and she is the executive director of African Americans Against Alzheimer's. And Stephanie, are you with us as well?
I am. Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to have you. And so we are going to be talking about this, all of the, and Connie Cooper is also going to be talking about health disparities here. Connie, are you with us? Okay. All right, so let's keep talking about these health disparities. And let's start with you, Latasha, if we can talk about how important it is as far as Black Voters Matter and what you are telling people and sharing with people, why it's important that we become energized and a part of the voting conscience and raise our voting conscience in terms of healthcare and doing away with the disparities. Latasha.
You know, one of the things that part of the work that we do at Black Voters Matter is to get people engaged in the civic engagement process so that we can literally have the kind of policies that we need to advance our community and also be able to make a decision around who serves in leadership that is aligned with our priorities. You know, as you talked about earlier, you know, we are disproportionately impacted by their health disparities. And so what we see right now is we see the massive closing of hospitals in rural areas, particularly as I live in Georgia. There's been a number of hospitals that have been closed in rural Georgia. What we see is it's unaffordable of healthcare access to many. You know, when we're looking at our health outcomes and we're looking at who has access to that healthcare, then that really is part of what drives us. For us, voting is not the end all. Voting is a tool to get us to, we want healthy and whole communities. And part of what is important for us is for every single human being to really be able to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as laid out in the Constitution. In order to do that, you've got to have a healthy life. And in order to have that, we've got to really be able to raise up some of those issues in our community, how we as a community are going to address them. But we also need public policy and political leaders that are in place that will actually align themselves with that same kind of value to make sure that we have adequate access, to make sure that healthcare is affordable, to make sure that we have something as simple as you don't have to travel 200 miles just to get medical care, just to get to a hospital. And so that's part of the work that we do and part of the connection of the work that we do at Black Voters Matter. It's about literally how do we create and advance our community.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to work with you guys, and I miss being out on the road with you, but it won't be
let's
much longer.
We're getting you back. Just be prepared, Sybil.
I'm ready. Also ready to join us is Connie Cooper, and she is a volunteer with the organization with AARP of Georgia, and want to talk about the health disparities. So please let us welcome Connie Cooper.
Thank you. Several years ago, when AARP issued the rallying cry to disrupt aging, we knew that although more people were living longer, healthier, and economically stable lives, the barriers to accessible and equitable health care and economic supports continue to keep millions of older adults, particularly vulnerable and underserved populations, from living and aging on their own terms. For us in minority communities, however, this is not new, but what is new is how we show up in conversations, self-care, and advocate for better health care for ourselves and our loved ones. As a wise friend and fierce defender of the 50+ population, it is AARP's mission to empower people to choose how they live as they age. As AARP Georgia, one way we do that is with a commitment to focus our state work on disrupting disparities in health for minority communities, which is the reason we are hosting this very important discussion this evening. We hope something is said that will inspire and or empower you to take action and join us as we continue to develop this work to address this issue as we move forward. As we come to the close of Women's History Month, we celebrate the wonderful women on this panel, and we celebrate and honor you for how you continue to show up in your lives, the lives of your loved ones, and in your communities. We thank you again for joining us. And now I will turn it back over to Sybil and Myra to get the conversation started.
So, Miss Cooper, are you still with us? Miss Cooper?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to ask you, because it's, you know, as you say, as you've been a part of this, what inspired you? What propels you in this discussion that we are having and starting discussions like this and having special events like this?
Well, many. I just celebrated with my mother her 99th birthday.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Awesome.
2 Saturdays ago. And just being around my mom, her friends, as well as myself now and my friends, we are getting older. And just to know that it's never too late. We should have started earlier for some of the things that are affecting us now, but we can learn and we can do better. And so I want to be an advocate, an ambassador, a friend, a helper to people like myself and others in our community, especially the Black community.
Well, you know what? That's wonderful. Happy birthday to your mom. Happy belated birthday. And also thank you for the work you're doing. And I know your mom is proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
So much. Thanks so much. Let us keep the conversation going. And Sean, you are, as the American Heart Association ambassador, you have had the experience not only as a person undergoing health struggles and challenges, but you also are doing something about it. Tell people what it is that happened to you and your sister, as well as what you all are doing now.
Well, I have an identical twin, and we're 53 now, but when we turned 40, my twin sister, we were both diagnosed with congestive heart failure. My sister, she was diagnosed first, and the thing with women, you know, we're the burden bearers, we take care of the whole world, and a lot of times, and we're nurses too, so, you know, we take care of the whole world, and sometimes we neglect or ignore the symptoms ourselves. You know, so when she was diagnosed, you know, she was really fatigued and that type of thing, and she felt, well, I'm just deconditioned, I'll just go to work. But long story short, you know, she had an emergency while she was working at the ER. She became the patient that day. You know, so she ended up having to follow up with a cardiologist and had to have an echo and a stress test, which she failed terribly. And, you know, had the echo, and the tech came and did the echo, and the tech never leaves the room. You know, they always say they're going to follow up with you later, but the tech left the room to go get the doctor to come back in. And say, we think we know what's wrong with you. You have heart failure. So then you go through the stages of grieving, and she, you know, told the doctor, you got the wrong patient, I don't believe you, the whole nine. So then she came home and told me, since we were identical twins, you know, we know that it has a genetic component to it. You know, so they thought hers might have been caused by a virus. We didn't know, because it sort of happened suddenly, but I went on to appease her. I said, well, I'll just go get checked to make you feel okay. So I went 3 weeks later, went through the stress test, failed the stress test. The same tech left the room, came back to the same doctor and said, we think we know what's wrong with you. You have congestive heart failure. If it wasn't so serious, I think I would have cracked up laughing, because it was just so strange. But, God doesn't make mistakes. So, we were able to go through this journey together, but with that, it empowered us to really take a look at, why is it the number one killer of women? Why is heart disease the number one killer of women? So we got involved with the American Heart Association and, been doing a lot of education and a lot of work with women to really bring to the forefront the signs and symptoms of heart disease. Education is the key, and really making sure that we're the CEOs of our own healthcare.
Can you share with us what's one of the major lifestyle changes you and your sister had to make once you got the diagnosis?
Oh, I was the queen of the Slim Jim.
Oh,
those meat sticks?
Yeah.
And it had to be Tabasco. It had to be the hot ones. I didn't like them.
Ooh.
But salt was a thing for me, and they were quick because, when you're working on the nursing floor, you had to grab something quick because lunch was out the window, but they were loaded with salt. So curbing the salt in my diet was a big one. Seafood's big for me. The Old Bay seasoning was big for me. So those things, because the more salt you take in, it makes you retain fluid, and then you can't breathe and you end up back in the ER.
And
so
you
those are things for me.
You said education. I think that is so important for us to read the food labels, because we don't seem to understand when we just go up and down the aisle and you're grabbing a can of beans and a can, so quick food, to stop and read those labels and see the sodium content.
We have no idea how much sodium is in some of this stuff. We only need 1,500 milligrams of salt a day, and that's not a lot, and we sometimes in one package, we triple the amount of sodium that we're supposed to have in a day in one product.
So Sean, let me ask you quickly, and we're going to include the other women in our discussion because it is sisters having our say.
Right.
As far as the some of the indications, the indicators of having some sort of heart distress, they say that it's different for men than it is for women. Was that true in you and your sister's case?
It was. Now, congestive heart failure is sort of similar across the board. Most people who have congestive heart failure have the shortness of breath. They have this overwhelming fatigue. Those are two of the things that my sister and I really had, just really exhausted. You feel like you've run a marathon, and when you start doing activity, it makes it worse. You get the swelling in the ankles or the feet. And a lot of times it may not even be there. I was holding a lot of my fluid in my gut. So those are some of you get a cough because the fluid starts to back up in your lungs. You get the wheezing. For a long time, they thought I had asthma. We may have had heart failure for years and didn't realize, but we were overlooked because we were 40, or younger. So those are some things, that we'll talk about too, as far as women, why it's the number one killer of women. We get overlooked a lot.
Absolutely. Let us welcome into the conversation to Stephanie Johnson Monroe, the Executive Director of African Americans Against Alzheimer's. And Stephanie, let's talk about this because this also is an area, Stephanie, in which African Americans rank very high in the diagnosis. Once we finally get to the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, Stephanie, is that not correct? But yet getting the help, getting to that point, that's where we are delayed, and that's where the disparity is.
Absolutely. And I love the first part of this conversation where we were really focusing on heart disease and heart health. Heart health is brain health. When you go to the doctor, we would say we need to be asking for a checkup from the neck up. Right. All of this is focused on your blood pressure, what's in your blood, your heart, which is great, vascular conditions, all those things are very important. Interestingly, one of the number one characteristics we see in people with Alzheimer's are those conditions, our diabetes, our heart disease. So we know they're all connected. We don't know yet whether one is causing the other, but we do know that we find in Alzheimer's patients those to be great predictors of this disease. But we want to focus on brain health. We know that brain changes before you get a diagnosis or move into full Alzheimer's. There's stuff going on in your brain often 20 years before you may actually even start exuding the first symptom. So technology is being developed to help us actually see those changes in the brain so that we can watch them and monitor them like we do cholesterol. We want to make this normative, right? Because Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death for all Americans, but it's the 4th leading cause of death for Black Americans. And 60% of the people who have Alzheimer's are women who also get the double whammy because we also happen to be the caregivers.
Yes.
So we're getting it on both ends.
Yeah.
So just, there was a time when I think there was a lot of embarrassment and shame and stigma. You'd go to church and your pastor would start with a prayer, that we all be of our right mind. And so if you had someone in the church who wasn't of their right mind,
right,
you wanted to put them on a back pew, not really talk about it. There's something going on there. We need to bring these people out of the shadows.
They don't even get to the church house. They don't even get to the church.
They don't feel welcome because they're going to act up a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But being able to do that. So when I started this work in Alzheimer's, I've been working on it now for about 10 years. As far as I knew, my family was really healthy. Well, 3 years in, God does have a sense of humor. 3 years in, my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And then I began to discover that, his mother and father probably had Alzheimer's. And then I've got an aunt in California who's got Lewy bodies. So as I began to talk about it and what the symptoms were, other people began to talk about it. And that's important because, there are some treatments, but there's a disparity in how Blacks get it. We're like 13% of the population, but 20% of the people with Alzheimer's are Black. We are bearing a third of the national cost of Alzheimer's in our community. Caregiving costs, medical costs, other costs. We've made all these great inroads through civil rights. We've got, developing generational wealth and all of this. That can be wiped out in one generation by Alzheimer's when you're paying, $15,000 a month for safe, and good care for your loved ones.
Right.
So we've got to tackle this. We've got to understand, why is there disparity? We know that it exists, but what's causing it? Which also means we need to be involved in solving our own problem. We need to be involved in research to understand what's going on with us.
Yeah.
Do medicines work the same on us as they do white people? No, they don't.
Right. Exactly. Exactly right.
But yet 97% of people who participate in clinical research are white European, a lot men.
Yeah.
And they generalize it to us. And we've got to change that dynamic.
Myra, I'm going to bring you into the conversation, but I also want to remind people that we are also taking your questions. And if you'd like to submit a question, we invite you to do so. All of the hundreds of people that have joined us tonight, we would love to be able to engage you in the conversation that we have with these wonderful women. And Myra, just in terms of when we were talking about heart disease and your family, Myra, and bringing Sean back into this, Myra, did you have any indication, because we've been talking about genetics, did you have any indication that Sean, as far as your family history was concerned, as we are talking about family history and Alzheimer's?
Well, with my family, we're more poster children for heart attack and stroke people. There has been some dementia in the family. I was going to ask Stephanie, is there a certain age range when we should really be concerned and go into our doctors? Because about 10 years ago, girl, I thought I was having some serious memory loss. I started popping that ginkgo biloba like it was Tic Tac. Because I was, and I guess it worked when I could remember to take it, but I couldn't even remember to do that. So is there a certain age frame when we should really be concerned and really start to question our doctors more?
Well, certainly at age 65, when you go in for your welcome to Medicare visit, they're supposed to be screening you to see how you're doing with your memory, whether it's normal for your age or not.
Well,
we sometimes have to ask for that.
Myra.
Yeah.
In 10 years, when you go for that age 65.
Good answer, Sybil.
Yeah. But sometimes we have to ask for it because sometimes they don't give it to us voluntarily, but they're supposed to. But basically, if you start to have, memory loss where the memory doesn't come back, right? So everybody has the opportunity where they go into a room, they forgot, why am I in this room? What do I do with my car keys? I'm having to like ring my cell phone because I don't know where it was. It was in my pocket, but now it's disappeared in my bed somewhere. I don't know. That's sort of normal.
Oh, okay.
Forgetfulness that happens, but memory loss. You know, I'm driving somewhere and I can't remember how to get to my, my best friend's house that I remembered all the time, or I find myself on a highway and I don't know how I actually got there, where I'm going, and that doesn't come back. That's when there's concern. But it's also good to go to the doctors because it may not be Alzheimer's. It might be a urinary tract infection. It might be that you took too much aspirin. There's other things that can happen that can make you more susceptible to those kind of memory changes. So going to the doctor and saying, I've got this concern. We've got to come out of our own fear, to ask those questions. And again, be pursuing good nutrition, hydration, exercise 3 times a week. All of these things that we talk about in terms of good, healthy aging works also. 40% of Alzheimer's, we determine, can be prevented by adopting those important lifestyle changes. And that's really huge.
Those are the words of Stephanie Johnson Monroe. She is the Executive Director of African Americans Against Alzheimer's Disease. And I want to go to you, Latasha, because I want to find out if any of this is ringing true for you, not as the incredible leader of the nation as far as Black voters are concerned, but also in terms of healthcare and in your own day-to-day experience. Are you feeling this as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting because one, I'm so appreciative to the information that I'm receiving. All of these things have impacted my family and impacted me in some way. I have my grandmother, who I always say was my soulmate, had Alzheimer's. She also had high blood pressure. She had diabetes. And my people in my family, all of those diseases, she had heart issues as well. And so part of it, I know, had resulted from stress. I know part of it resulted from diet, and part of it resulted from the environmental factors. And so as I think about this, I think about all those things that we actually deal with in our communities, of what we're exposed to, some of the environmental issues that we're exposed to, but then also some of the behaviors. I had a girlfriend who every time she would see me, she would ask me, how is your heart? And I thought that was such a strange question to ask, right? And so she was very mindful because she had heart issues around how is my heart? And that simple question made me be mindful. It made me be mindful around, when my heart stopped, I'm out of here. It's around.
So we need to keep asking.
I might need to keep asking, and I might need to literally shift how I'm approaching it. And one of the things that I'm actually learning as I'm getting older, I'm in my early 50s, and as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more aware of my body. Like when I get up, I'm starting like, wait, I can't just jump up like I used to, right? Right. So I was so happy to hear you, Stephanie, say, when you started going down the list of losing your keys and all that, I was like, oh, goodness gracious, right? That some of that is kind of a normal part of the process. But I also think that is important, as we're saying, sisters have their say, we really have to recognize the most important stewardship we have is the stewardship of this body.
Yes.
That we really have. And in some ways I'm lifting it up, and at the same time I'm convicted because I don't eat all the things I need to eat to keep going, particularly when you're busy and you're on the road.
Yes.
You're on the road. And so what I'm gathering just from this conversation so far is that, yes, there is an additional need, and we should push for that, for research for our communities. I have a story related to research that I think ultimately that I lost my mother to cancer, and there was a determination around a premature determination of kind of what kind of cancer she had when she actually had a different kind. And so, just thinking about those particular spaces, but also in this moment, I'm sitting here thinking about what is it that I can do? Right. How can I really take charge of this? What do I need to learn? So I'm just really really appreciative to this conversation.
Well, I think that, you talk about what we're learning and what we're doing, and we also are encouraging the other sisters and brothers who are watching us tonight and have their say. We'd like you to participate in our polls, and Myra Jay is going to guide us in the polling as far as the questions as well as the responses are concerned, because that is very important to get everybody involved in this conversation, and we all bring something to this. So Myra?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to put up a poll question here. Please, everybody answer. It's going to be real quick. It is, let's see. Is the incidence of cardiovascular disease the same for both men and women? The answers are yes, no, or not sure. It's just a single choice. I'll read it again. Is the incidence of cardiovascular disease the same for both men and women? Yes, no, or not sure. Yes.
Sean's got an advantage on us on this, but
I kind of know, but yes, this will be real quick. Just a few. Ooh, what look at here. Okay, here's the response. We have 1% said yes, 92% said no, and 7% said not sure. Okay, we can close that out. 92% said no, and I'm going to go to our expert Sean here to say, what do you think? What do you think about the audience?
So when I looked at this question, and we sort of alluded to a little bit of this, so the answer is the incidence of cardiovascular disease is actually lower in women. However, the mortality and death is higher in women.
Wow.
It's the number one killer of women. So that's why we're here. Why is that? If it occurs almost on an equal keel between men and women, it occurs about the same in men and women. But why are we dying in larger numbers? Why are women dying in larger numbers? So, and there's a lot of things that we need to look at when we think about that. And there's one thing, and then we're the caregivers for one thing, and then we define how we look at, for instance, heart attack. You guys remember that commercial where you said, it feels like an elephant sitting on my chest, how men describe they're having a heart attack.
Right.
Women don't describe having a heart attack that way. There's a slang term that we use when women go to the emergency room, how they're feeling when you ask them about chest pain, and it's called ADR. Anybody ever heard about ADR?
ADR.
Oh, ADR. Ain't doing right. They just say, I just ain't doing right. And then you got to kind of pull it out of when you have a little shortness of breath. Does your arm hurt? Well, a little bit. It feels like gas. If you've taken half a bottle of Tums and you still got gas, honey, it's not gas. You need to be on your way to the ER for cardiac workup. But that's why we're dying. We overlook
the
symptoms.
And is that part of the disparity part of it, Sean?
It is. It is. Especially if you have diabetes. Because if you have diabetes, it affects your nerve endings and you don't experience the pain like you would with someone who does not have diabetes. It destroys the nerves that lets you feel like you're having pain in your chest. So you could be having the big one and don't even realize it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because half of us grew up watching Fred Sanford, so we're waiting for that. I'm coming, Elizabeth,
Exactly.
No, women, we may not feel that at all. By the time you feel that, it might be too late, chick. So please go and get that checked out whenever you have any sort of questions about that.
And there's a lot of other things too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I just wanted to pin that particular point that you just made, Sean, because I do have a short personal experience around that. I was feeling extremely tired, real tired last summer. And so I thought, because of the work we were doing and because we were doing a lot, and I went to just my regular checkup. And after the end of the checkup, the doctor called me at home and told me to go to the hospital immediately. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm feeling fine.
You didn't have ADR?
I didn't have ADR. I'm like, I did, but I didn't. I had normalized. That's why I'm raising this, because I think other women can get. I had normalized being tired. In fact, my blood level, I'm severely anemic, and my blood level was so low that the nurse said most people who their iron level of this at this stage, at this low, their hemoglobin is this low, they can't even walk in here. I had done 3 events that day and had been on 4 flights. I'm raising that. Not so much just about me, but the way that women respond to our pain and our health issues, we normalize it. And so I'm glad you're raising this, because I think we really do have to pay more attention. If it's ADR, if something ain't right, we need to deal with it, and stop and say something ain't right.
Right. Stephanie Johnson Monroe, I'm not sure if it's to mention, but I forgot. We need another poll. We need to talk about another poll. And so, Myra, you have that information?
Yes, I do. We're going to do another poll. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to participate. And this question is memory loss a normal part of aging? Is memory loss a normal part of aging? Again, it's a single choice. Yes, no, or not sure. Is memory loss a normal part of aging? Now, if you're sitting here pondering long on this question, I'm just saying.
Pondering, huh?
Pondering. If you're pondering, if you're going, and can't find your phone and it's in your hand, I'm just saying.
Well, that's also like your glasses, Myra, isn't it?
Glasses are always on your head. Your keys.
I've done that, looking for them, and they were like right here.
All the time.
Right.
Yeah, can't find your purse. It's on your arm. I know. We've all been there. So let's. Okay.
There we go.
That was quick. Okay. Let's see. We have. Is memory loss a normal part of aging? Yes is at 61%. No is at 26%. And not sure, these are the people still running around the house looking for the phone. Where's my computer? No, that's at 13%. Not sure is at 13%.
Let's have our executive director of African Americans Against Alzheimer's give us a comment on that and your reflections on that poll and where we stand in all of this.
Well, I gave a subtle hint when I was talking earlier.
Yes.
But yeah, so memory loss is not a normal part of aging. Forgetfulness, again, where you can press and think about it, it'll come back to you. But if it's just like gone, that is not a normal part of aging. Mm-hmm. Now, the people who said not sure, I sort of like that answer too, because if you experience either memory loss or forgetfulness that you feel is unusual, you might not be sure what the cause is. It could be aging. Like I said, it could be a UTI, it could be something else. Mm-hmm. So you want to see the doctor. You want to give a call or, write it down. I find that, like I think most women, who has time to take off when we think we might be sick? So we're going to wait until it's undisputable, right? Mm-hmm. I keep a little booklet so I can remember all these different symptoms that I don't think are connected, so that when I go to the doctor, he can say how you're feeling. And I can say, well, this is how I was feeling. This is stuff I've experienced. Just things that we think are random. Yeah. But, being able to keep tabs of that and then have something that you can go in and help lead the conversation with your doctor is going to be really helpful. This is where I would put those memory kinds of issues, because it all depends on also what type of memory, what type of forgetfulness you're having. People say, I can't remember a certain person's name. Okay, but did you recognize their face? Mm-hmm. Right? So lack of facial recognition might be leading to a different kind of response that I couldn't pull their name just then. Now, if it's somebody that you see every day, like if you can't remember mama's name, you got a problem.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you, Latasha, because we did make a strong right there as we were talking about your situation, and so what's your recommendation for people who are, as my mother used to say, ripping runners like you? You make stops in 7 states in one day. And you know, the medical professionals look at you like a miracle child, because you walked in on your own 2 feet. And yet, you know, your numbers were at that level. What do you say to people? What's your advice as you are experiencing this, but you know you have to do something?
You know, it's going to be counterintuitive what I'm about to say, but it is in the words of my wise grandmama. She used to say, "Baby, slow down."
Right.
Or as we say, go somewhere and sit down.
Go somewhere and sit down. You know, I think it really is important for us.
Right.
We are not machines. This is a body, you know, and it is a precious resource. And so part of what I have to do, and I guess for others as well, is I have to unlearn some of my bad behaviors. Like in many ways, living in this capitalist society, it makes us think of ourselves as a machine. We're supposed to work. It's interesting because we say we're working for a living, when in fact, the way we work is killing us. It's not working for a living. We're working that actually sends us to early death. I remember one of the things that when I grew up, what would be interesting is all the people in my family, when they were retired, they would immediately get sick.
Yeah.
They would immediately be bedridden. And I had decided that I didn't want to be that I wanted to have a full, beautiful, long life where I had my health as far as I could. I have longevity in my family. My grandfather lived to 104 years old, y'all.
God bless him.
Every day he would get up. It was when I was younger, it was funny, but I really understand how powerful it was. Every day he would get up and stand. He walked around. He was actually very mobile. He was completely in good health given his age. He would stand up in front of the heater and he would do 2 toe touches. And he's like, "I did my exercises," and he would sit down. Right. And so in this process, kind of my advice would be a couple of things. One is that if we want to make the world better, we've actually got to take care of ourselves in part of that process. And so I'm learning that lesson, learning how to slow down. I'm learning how to actually block time a little bit better, right? Instead of like thinking about kind of running, how can I make some time for myself? Because what I do know is if you don't take care, like my girlfriend would say, if you don't take care of your business will take care of you.
Okay.
And so if we don't take care of this body will force us to slow down and take care of it. So being more mindful around, I just think even the consciousness, even as I'm on this, this discussion right now, I'm going to follow up with my doctor tomorrow to actually with some tests that I've just kind of left out there with routine tests. I was like, oh, it's routine. There's nothing wrong. That even in this moment, I'm actually feeling a sense of with standing with sisters who are talking about this healthcare issue, that I have an obligation to take care of myself because I need me, my family needs me, and my community needs me.
We need you.
Yes, right. And so I think part of that process is literally changing my behavior, know that I'm also a part of the change that I seek, and also finding a way that no matter what I do, I've got to integrate healthy practices.
So Latasha, let me ask you, because you are a part of an action, and you're an action-oriented person as the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Talk to the people about the necessity of becoming involved in the political system in order to advance our and to narrow the health disparity gap, because that is so vital to where we're going.
It is, you know, the bottom line is, don't we want a healthy and happy? I like the world, everything gets better when you're around healthy and happy people, right? And part of what keeps us there is really being able to not just push, because I do think that there's a sense of just pushing this sense of responsibility on, well, if you sick, that's because you did something wrong. Or if you sick, it's because of bad behavior. When there's a number of factors that impact our community. There are a number of factors around having fresh food. There are food deserts in this country, right?
Yes,
having access to, as I talked about earlier, hospitals, medical care, affordable care, support, and all of those things are made by policy decisions. There's not any aspect of our lives that are not made by policy decisions. How are policy decisions made by policymakers? How do policymakers get in place? From voting. It really is. I can literally go from every single outcome or disparity and point it right back to a policy. policy that was adopted, passed, or presented by elected officials. And so what we have to do is we have to start seeing voting not just as an act, a transaction around election. We have to literally see it as a tool of advancing and saving our lives. That
a day-to-day action too.
Our day-to-day actions. You can't even die and your family collect the insurance without there being impacted by some kind of public policy. And so I want people to also see that voting is a healthcare issue. Voting is a healthcare issue because how we vote, who governs, who we put in office, what policies are passed, make a determination of where resources go into community, who has access to healthcare and who doesn't, where's research that is supported, how is that prioritized? And so all of those things, we really have to really recognize that there is a direct correlation between engaging in the civic and the political process and around the creation of policy that's going to impact and have better outcomes and demand better health outcomes for our community.
Yeah. Myra, we are up to another poll with you. You have that poll for us, and we'll give Latasha a second to catch her breath there, and all of us to think about what our charges are, what we need to do. So Myra, what is the next poll?
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we'd love for you to participate. The next question is, are voting rights a priority for you? Again, are voting rights a priority issue for you? It's a single choice answer, yes or no. Yes or no. Yes or no.
I sense urgency.
And I think Latasha said, I could have read that better myself.
We're just saying yes or no.
Or no.
That's all. No judgment here. No judgment here.
Latasha, thank you so much for that. Myra, what are you saying? What are you seeing with the results there?
Okay, so the results of that is 98% yes and 2% no. Okay, so you want to follow up, Latasha?
So, you know, I want to offer that we are in this space that we have to see voting rights outside of the context of elections and political figures. The bottom line is, as I said earlier, you know, it is voting rights impact every single policy decision that is made in this nation. You know, an AARP community has just been just awesome about lifting up voting rights. I don't think we need to see voting rights as it's not a partisan issue. Right. It doesn't matter how you identify yourself, where you are on the spectrum, but it does matter who comes out and who votes. It does matter that your voice, because your voice shapes how policy priorities are decided in that sector. So voting rights is a core issue. And I'm hoping, you know, there was a report a study that Politico did, where it said that 57% of people across the board felt like voting rights was a major issue. When you look at around expanding early voting, you know, as we age, you know, I'm thinking about my 88-year-old aunt, you know, going to stand in line for hours, that's just unconscionable for her. But having access to mail-in voting, right, and having voting rights to be able to do that and have absentee voting, she needs that. And for her to be able to use her voice, for her to be able to actually exercise her civil right is really important. When you're looking at in this nation who wants to expand same-day voter registration, there are places like Michigan that you can actually register and vote the same day.
Same day.
Percent of people around the country. So I do think that we have to start seeing voting rights from a larger context of, oh, that's just politics, and recognize that no, really what it is that is our power lever to engage in policy, to actually listen. If anybody's making decisions about me and my family, I need to be a part of that decision-making process. So just on that alone, it is going to be a priority.
And we should say, Latasha, as we open this up, our discussion to for people who have questions, we have to vote like our lives depend on it.
Because it does.
It does. It absolutely does. We are going to move to our questions, and I believe we do have a number of questions. We have a question: what role, if any, does mental health play, or health disparities and on health disparities or chronic illnesses? Would you like to take that, Stephanie, or Sean?
In the population that I serve, we always have this saying, you can't separate the mind from the body. You know, where the mind goes, the body goes. You know, so if you're not in a good mental place, the physical is not going to be in a good place. You know, so even as we treat, you know, our patients for diabetes, you know, as we treat, you know, hypertension, you know, we also have to look at the mental state. You know, are you depressed? You know, we get patients all the time. If they come in and their main agenda for that appointment is to help them with their diabetes, but they just had a fight with their spouse before they got here. You know, if we can sit there and tell them, you know, you need to make sure you watch your soda and watch your portion. They are not hearing a word I said because they just had a fight with their spouse before we have to address the elephant in the room. You know, so those two things are connected, you know, and for many, many years, you know, folks have been trying to separate the two. You know, we are holistic beings.
Yes.
You know, mind, body, and spirit. You can't treat one without addressing all of it. You know, so that's how we have to approach healthcare. You know, we have to treat them both. We have to look at them all.
I agree.
And Stephanie, let me ask you this question. This is, I believe it's from Kenny and asking, how do we get involved in the clinical trials? This is something that, you know, we talked about and how medicines affect Black folks differently than others. And so how do we get into that? Because I had a situation in my family with breast cancer and my cousin could not get into a trial.
Right.
Yeah, that's the double whammy. We absolutely need to be involved in research to make sure that whatever's being created, whether it's a lifestyle change strategy or, you know, a new type of medicine or a new type of machinery or something like that, we've got to make sure it works for all of us and all of us need to be in. At the same time, one of the problems with health disparities in this space is that trials are sometimes designed to make it impossible. I shouldn't say to make it impossible, that make it impossible for people to participate. For example, I know in a lot of Alzheimer's trials, they'll say, you can't have diabetes to be in this trial. Well, you done told 40% of our population you cannot be in research.
Yeah.
Or you have to have a care partner who can also take off one day a month without pay from their work to go with you to the trial, right? People can't do that without pay. So we talk about Black Voters Matter, we talk about paid leave and other things like that. So we need to ask, though. We found that, you know, a lot of doctors assume that Black people don't want to participate because of atrocities that have been perpetrated against us in the past, Tuskegee and others. In fact, the biggest problem that we see is 80% of people that we've surveyed have never been asked to participate in research.
Wow. Interesting.
Whether it's invasive, you know, come in and get a once a month infusion, or whether it's do a YMCA exercise trial, right? We're not being asked. So we have to be, again, proactive in asking our doctors, because they need people who are both healthy and sick to participate in research and studies and things like that nature. So we're going to have to be proactive and ask our doctor.
Oh, let me ask you, I'm sorry.
Look it up online.
Because we're running out of time, and they are giving us a little time to go over, but we have more questions. But this is related to what you're saying, I think, Stephanie. It's related to what you're saying. Does it help for us to have more Black medical experts and professionals in our lives that would encourage us to be a part of the trials, or to look at this, or have them look at these things differently?
Well, it certainly helps to have a workforce that looks like us. So that we go to the hospital, we're not just we're not seeing people who don't look like us at all. That's a trust issue. That's do I really know who you are and what your real motivations are and all of that stuff. And we need qualified people who are culturally sensitive and respectful and understand and don't treat us in a way that makes us feel uncomfortable, like we don't want to go back. That's really what we need. We need to graduate more kids, you know, through the medical system. I think our rates of people graduating from medical school hasn't changed since the 1960s.
Well, you know, as a result of coronavirus, there's just a recent study that the admissions to, or actually the application to medical schools among African Americans has risen 20% in 1 year as a result of what we've gone through in the coronavirus. Young Black people wanting to go to medical school. as a result of the disparities in the treatment that people received during this pandemic.
Right. Because, you know, these doctors, researchers, if they look like us, they're more inclined to create research opportunities that are meaningful for us.
Right.
Otherwise, we're being defined by people who may have other priority issues. So it's really important. Diversity at every level is really important.
Can you talk about this too while I got you, Stephanie? And these questions are coming in pretty fast and furious, but you've mentioned this twice, and I've seen this in my own families about the role between the connection between UTIs and memory loss and the difference and the way that UTIs can affect our bodies.
Well, I'm not a doctor, I often say, but I play one on TV, but Sean is actually a nurse.
Yeah.
So maybe you would like to respond to that.
It plays, it's huge. And a lot of times when a patient has a rip-roaring UTI and they have Alzheimer's, it can be overlooked because that patient, they say, oh yeah, she's just having a bad day with their dementia, and they're never worked up for the UTI. You know, so usually when they have a UTI and they have this acute onset of this really strange behavior, and I'll use my grandmother as an example. You know, she's got some early dementia, but when we went to visit her, it was exacerbated. You know, she was really out of sorts. She was walking around with one shoe and her clothes undone, just really disheveled. And we thought, what is going on here? My mom didn't really understand what's going on. I said, well, maybe we need to place her in another home. We said, wait a minute, you know, maybe she's got a UTI. And sure enough, she had a rip-roaring urinary tract infection. Treated her with the 7 to 10 day course of antibiotics. And it was like somebody flipped the light switch and she was back to her normal self.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, the one thing I learned this year for the first time with my father, he had a UTI. And I thought only women got UTIs. I was very surprised.
Right.
And they described what may have caused it. And frankly, as you get older and you're wearing Depends and you're keeping all that moisture in clothes.
That's it.
Yeah. And he got one. And I was like, I didn't know, just like men get breast cancer. I'm like, who knew?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
My just an example of UTIs. My aunt had one. She had a kidney transplant and it was going back and forth and had a number of surgeries following this. And she had a UTI. And at one point we came into the hospital room. She was having a really deep discussion with Tiger Woods' ex-wife. It's sitting in the corner of the room. Mind you, we never met Tiger or his ex-wife, but but it was this UTI. They determined that the UTI had affected what she was seeing and the conversation she was having with people. It has an amazing and as you say, it's with you can if you're with a person every day, you can see how that transition occurs. And I was like, oh, I want to check for that UTI. But if you don't, that makes a big difference too, because how do you know to go there, right, Sean?
I find these conversations amazing. I used to just call this Friday night. I did not know. I did not know that this could be as a result of a UTI.
Exactly.
Okay. But Myra, in this case, it's going to take more than a bottle of cranberry juice in order to.
You live and you learn. You live and you learn. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ladies, thank you so much. It's been an extraordinary time, and if we can close out with one more question, I'm asking people if we no, we don't is the answer. Okay, we're going to try to get all those folks who are kind enough to step up and ask the questions. We're going to try to get your questions answered as well. Before we go, I just want to thank you all so much. Latasha, you've given us so much in terms of showing us the connection between our voting activity and how we make that jump to legislation such as our healthcare, which is so vitally important. And I just want to thank you for all the work you do. It is it's been great having your friendship and watching you and your magic, and you and Cliff are just extraordinary, and keep up the great work with Black Voters Matter.
Thank you. Thank you, Sybil.
I also want to thank Stephanie Johnson Monroe as the Executive Director of African Americans Against Alzheimer's. Stephanie Monroe, you are a fine example taking charge of this situation and how things may or may not affect your life, but really taking charge and making a difference. And especially as in this particular role that Alzheimer's and other dementias play in our community and in our lives. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And Sean Rivers, I want to thank you as well. You are, you know what? You and your sister are right there together. I don't know who.
Yes.
It's hard to tell the difference between the two of you, as well to tell who is the best one and who's my favorite.
Oh,
so
no.
I can't. I absolutely can't. But I thank you for your work. And working with the American Heart Association, I know how you guys are important to the whole factor in terms of heart health care and looking at the disparities and closing that disparity gap as well. So thank you so much for all the good work, and bless your heart.
Oh, thank you so much. The whole heart.
Your heart. All the best to you and your sister. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Myra.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we close this out, I want to, as I have thanked you all, Myra Jay, I want to thank you as well. And we do have some closing comments. And I believe that Ms. Cooper is going to be joining us again.
So I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay. Connie Cooper, you are just as cute as you can be. Thank you so much. And appreciate you as you close out. Thank you for the opportunity and for the sisters having our say.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
What can I say but wow? AARP Georgia would like to thank all of our panelists, Sybil and Myra Jay, for a most informative evening and keeping the spotlight on the glaring disparities in heart and brain health of African American women. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your time, experiences, and expertise with our listening audience. We know that policy and program changes are what's needed to affect changes in our daily lives, our families, and in our communities, leading to longer, healthier, productive lives. And now to Deborah Tyler Horton, our State Director, for our closing.
Thank you, Connie. Connie is an amazing AARP volunteer, so we want to give her kudos for being with us tonight. What a night. Is everyone making a doctor's appointment with your list of what you want him or her to check the next time you go in? I know I am. Thank you to everyone in our virtual audience for joining us tonight. It has certainly been an enlightening conversation. I'd like to thank our moderators, Ms. Sybil Wilkes and Ms. Myra Jay, for facilitating our discussion. I'd like to extend a special thank you to our expert panelists, Ms. Latasha Brown from Black Voters Matters, Ms. Sean Rivers from the American Heart Association, and Ms. Stephanie Johnson Monroe from the African American Network Against Alzheimer's. Stephanie and I go way back. Stephanie, thank you for being with us tonight. We are so appreciative of your willingness to join us tonight to share your expertise. So don't be surprised, we'll be calling on you to come back and continue this conversation. In the words of AARP founder, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrews, if we are not content with things as they are, we must concern ourselves with things as they might become. AARP Georgia will continue to raise awareness about the issue of disparities in healthcare, voter access, and other areas to spark conversation, to seek solutions that help us realize our vision of a society in which everyone can choose how they live as they age. I want to give a special shout out to the AARP staff, Alice Bennett, AARP Georgia Associate State Director for Outreach, for coordinating tonight's event, and to our national colleagues behind the scenes, making things happen, Mike Kulek and Vinay Gallion. We invite you to learn more about all of AARP Georgia's activities by finding us on Facebook or visiting aarp.org/GA. Again, thank you for joining us and have a great evening. Good night.
Recording stopped.